very much for that warm welcome. This is my first trip to your country, and I must say I'm very impressed. Can I just be a nerd and tell you that what impressed me the most is the speed of the internet access. I am truly blown away. I was getting 50 megabits. And I never get 50 megabits in Silicon Valley. So that was impressive. And the other thing that's impressive is that there are 4,200 seats in this building, and each one of them has an individual, unique seat cover. And I can't even wrap my mind around how you could get that done. So I've already been very impressed. And what a roster of speakers, what a great facility. The people who are putting on this conference have been so kind and so nice. And I get to speak on the same agenda with Bob Cialdini. So is Bob here? Where's Bob? Bob, I'm flattered, Bob. Another round of applause for Bob. Bob, I want you to know that before I left San Francisco, I told my wife, you know, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think your husband would be flown all the way to Romania and speak with Bob Cialdini? And you know what she said to me? She said, Guy, you're not in my wildest dreams. So Bob, I want you to know that I was really paying attention to what you said today. So you gave me a card with the little, 6 things, the 6 tips. So I'm going to give you a book because I'm going to reciprocate. And I'm signing it to you because you said you wanted a pen with your name. This is a book with your name. So that's reciprocity, that's number 1. It's personalized now, right? This is the only time I'm going to speak in this entire year in Eastern Europe, so it's scarce. This is a scarce thing. If you go to this slide, I'm going to show you why I'm an authority on what I'm about to speak. I used to work at Apple. I was Apple's software evangelist. My job was to convince people to write Macintosh software. I served at Apple twice. The second time I was Apple's chief evangelist. And then I left to start several software companies and do writing and speaking. I'm currently the chief evangelist of a company called Canva out of Sydney, Australia. It is Australia's second unicorn ever. We're in the graphics design business. And finally, I'm a brand ambassador for Mercedes-Benz. So this means that I'm one of the few people in the world who gets paid to drive a Mercedes-Benz. So So that establishes my authority. That's number 3. Number 4 is consistency. And so I know you've been a great audience, and I know you're here to learn as much as you can about branding. So I want you to be consistent with that impression of you and listen to me. I have heard and I have seen that you are most attentive and you laugh at all the great jokes, and I love that. So that's liking you. I also want you to know that thousands of people have loved the speech you're about to see. So that is consensus. And finally, I want you to look at that logos because that is a form of persuasion. I want you to be in the mindset of Apple and Canva and Mercedes as we talk about branding. Okay? So, maybe we should go on the road together, Bob. So listen, I'm going to talk about the art of innovation. And I'm going to use a top 10 format. I always use a top 10 format for my speeches. This is because I have seen so many high-tech speakers, really. For 30 years, I've been looking at high-tech speakers. And other than the ones that you heard today, they all suck. And not only do they suck, they go long. And that is a very difficult combination. Because if you suck and your speech is short, it's okay. And if you're great and your speech is long, also okay. But if you suck and go long, that's just like being stupid and arrogant. So I always use the top 10 format for my speeches. Let me begin. As soon as I tell people that I worked at Apple, they always want an Apple speech, an Apple story. So I'm going to fulfill that right away. This is a picture taken of the Macintosh division in 1984. We're standing in front of the Macintosh division building. I'm in the little red circle. You can't even tell that it's me. I'm so stupid. I should have stood in the front of this picture. I'm so stupid. The most important person in this picture is the one kneeling in the front. That's Steve Jobs, of course. This is a very, very, very important picture because this is the only known instance of Steve Jobs ever getting on his knees for anybody. This is the largest collection of egomaniacs in the history of America. It was recently broken by the Trump administration, but until So Trump is fair game in Romania? Oh, this is going to be a good day. So, back then Apple had two major divisions, the Apple II division and the Macintosh division. So the Apple II division was shipping. They were making all the money. The Macintosh division was not yet shipping. So we were spending all the money. If you looked at the Apple P&L back then, the P was Apple II, the L was Macintosh. And we were such arrogant people because we were picked by Steve Jobs. We thought we were special. And so I'll tell you one thing that we did that was very wrong. We would not let Apple II division employees into that building. So if you think about that, they were not being allowed into a building in the same company. And then they figured out that they were not being allowed in a building in the same company that they had paid for. So this pissed them off, so they came up with this great joke about the Macintosh division, which is, how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is one. The Macintosh division employee holds up the light bulb and expects the universe to revolve around it. I wish Avi were here. Avi, can you hear me, Avi? Is Microsoft a sponsor? Do you want them to ever be a sponsor? So, the Microsoft version of this joke is, how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is none, because Bill Gates has declared darkness the new standard. So, I'll give you one Steve Jobs story. I told you I fulfill my moral obligation. One day I'm in my cubicle, I'm working, Steve Jobs shows up with someone I had never met before. He asked me about a company called Knoware, K-N-O-W-A-R-E. It was an educational software company, knowledge software, truncated to Knoware. So he asked me what I thought of the company. I said, Steve, mediocre company, mediocre product. Product doesn't take advantage of the Macintosh graphical user interface or color or anything like that. Drill and practice, 2 + 2 = 4, Steve. Not sexy, not whizzy, not cool, nothing. Mediocre product, mediocre company. And he says to me, Guy, I want you to meet the CEO of Knoware. Now, that's what it was like working for Steve Jobs. And myself and everybody else in this picture, we would not trade places, trade times for that experience. He was a remarkable person. I think that the world is a lot less interesting without Steve Jobs, seriously. On the other hand, I promise you that he is telling God what to do right now. And God and Steve Jobs, They are working on Universe 2.0. And because Steve is involved, I can tell you a few things about Universe 2.0. First, it's going to be late. Second, it's going to be the best universe ever until about 2 or 3 p.m. when the batteries die. And third, every cable from this universe will not work in the next universe. So, before you get the impression that all I do is tell jokes, I will give you some content, okay? So, number one, the thing that I've observed about innovation, revolutionary change, is you have to define the business you're in. I think many organizations, they lose sight of the big picture. They are so focused on finishing the software, finishing the website, finishing the product, the gizmo, whatever it is, that they lose the definition of their business. They think they are in the business of whatever they're currently making. Let me show you why this is a mistake. This is a picture of an engineer. He worked for Kodak. The year is 1975. You see that big ugly thing on the desk? Guess what that is? That is the first digital camera. Wrap your mind around this. Kodak invented digital photography in 1975. How many of you use a Kodak digital camera today? 0 of you. And the problem was that Kodak misdefined its business. It defined it as being in the chemical business. They put chemicals on film. The film is exposed to light. Then the film is exposed to more chemicals. And then you print or you have a slide. But what Kodak could not remember, it could not remember its definition of its business is that it's in the business of preserving memories, not chemicals. This is what I call the slide of death. This is the slide you never ever want to be on. Kodak, chemicals business on film. Polaroid, chemicals business on paper. Wang, dedicated word processor. Smith Corona, typewriter. Each of these organizations misdefined their business. They thought they were in the chemicals business, or the typewriter business, or the word processing business. Truly, they were in the preservation of memories business. They were in the information sharing business, not the business as they so narrowly defined. So step one is to define your business in terms of what your customers are getting from you, as opposed to what you are currently making. Once you get this step, then you can get to the next step, and the hardest step in innovation, which is jumping to the next curve. You know, there used to be an ice harvesting business in the United States, late 1800s, early 1900s. This meant that during the winter, people would go with horses and sleighs and saws and cut blocks of ice. This was a breakthrough. It was much more convenient for people to buy ice from the ice harvester than to harvest the ice themselves. 30 years go by. Now we have the ice factory curve. Now, you could have ice any time of year in any city. You could have ice in the summer in Hawaii if you wanted. And then the Iceman would deliver ice to your house. A major breakthrough. And then the next step in ice is Ice 3.0, and now we have the refrigerator curve. And this is even better than the ice factory, because now you did not have to depend on the Iceman delivering ice to your house. You had your own ice factory. You had a personal chiller, a PC. The very interesting thing is that none of the ice factories became ice harvesters, none of the ice harvesters became ice factories, and none of the ice factories became refrigerator companies. Again, going back to step number one, because they defined their business incorrectly. Factory, harvester, refrigerator. They're in the cleanliness and convenience business. And if you remember that you're in the cleanliness and convenience business, then you jump to or you create the next curve. They're not harvesters per se, cleanliness and convenience. They're not factories per se, cleanliness and convenience. Innovation happens on the next curve. You know, in the mid-'80s, if you were to ask an Apple customer, what do you want from Apple? The Apple customer would say, better, faster, cheaper, Apple II. Nobody would describe a Macintosh because your current customers usually cannot describe how to revolutionize your business. They can only describe what they want in terms of what they already get from you. If you're getting an Apple II, you don't describe a Macintosh. If you're getting a Macintosh, you don't describe iOS devices. The key is to get to the next curve. The third thing, it's a great song, Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy. My observation in innovation is don't worry, be crappy. Don't worry, be crappy means that the first permutation of your curve may not be perfect at all. This is a Macintosh 128K. We thought 128K was an ocean of RAM. My God, what were people going to do with 128K of RAM? There was a 400K floppy disk drive in that 128K computer. My God, what were people going to do with 400K of floppy disk drive space? We were working on a secret 5 megabyte hard disk. And I swear, we used to sit around in Cupertino in our beanbag chairs, wearing our Birkenstocks, drinking white wine, smoking marijuana, and we'd be saying to each other, what are people going to do with so much storage? My God, 5 megabytes of storage. This is a 9-inch monochrome display, slow network. Thanks to my efforts, there was very little software for the first 2 years. This was a piece of crap, $2,500, but it was a revolutionary piece of crap. So I am not telling you to ship crap. I'm telling you that when you have jumped curves, it's okay to have elements of crappiness to your product or your service. The first laser printer was $7,000. It printed only on one side of the paper, only 8.5 by 11-inch paper, slow network, limited fonts. It was a piece of crap, but it was so much better than the best dot matrix printer. The first refrigerators were pieces of crap, so much better than getting ice delivered from the ice factory though. So the lesson that I learned is, don't worry, be crappy. Ship it. The way we work in Silicon Valley is we ship and then we test. Write that down. Ship and test. And you know, I'll tell you one thing that Silicon Valley is better than any other part of the world is we know how to declare victory. We can snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat all day long. The way it works is we throw a lot of things up against the wall. Some of them stick. We go up to the wall. We paint a bullseye around it and we say, we hit the bullseye. You can always hit the bullseye if you paint it after you hit the wall. Don't worry. Keep practicing. Number four is don't be afraid of polarizing people. Great products, great services, curve jumping products and services, they polarize people. Some people will love what you do, some people will hate what you do. It's okay. Some people love Macintosh, some people hate Macintosh. This is an example. This is a very old product called a TiVo. And what a TiVo did was time shift television programs. People like me who travel a lot, we love TiVo. But there is a whole group of people who hated the TiVo, primarily large consumer brands and their ad agencies. And they hated TiVo because people like me with TiVos, we never watched commercials. We fast forwarded through all the commercials. There's only one day that TiVo owners ever watch commercials, which is Super Bowl Sunday. And if you're a 49ers fan, that's the day that you skip the game and you watch the commercials. Because you're probably sick of seeing Tom Brady. The point here is that the worst case is not that you polarize people, it's that you have not excited any emotions at all. You are not on the radar. That is the worst case. I'm not telling you should intentionally piss people off, but I am saying that great products and great services polarize people. It's okay. Number five is my recommendation that as an innovator, you're going to have to learn to ignore naysayers. People who are negative, who say it can't be done, it shouldn't be done, and it isn't necessary. I like to call these people bozos, as in Bozo the clown. They're clowns, they're stupid. You should not take them very seriously. There are two kinds of bozos in the world. One bozo, slovenly, disgusting, pocket protector, body odor, Japanese watch, and rusty car. And you look at that person and you say, you are a loser. That bozo is not dangerous because only a loser would listen to a loser. You're not losers. That's not dangerous. The dangerous bozo is rich and famous because many people assume that rich and famous parses to smart. That is a bad assumption. If rich and famous always parse to smart, we would all listen to Kanye West about constitutional law, Tom Cruise about spirituality. I'm not saying that all rich and famous people are clueless, but I'm telling you, you need to revisit that assumption. So the dangerous bozo is the one that's rich and famous and you think is therefore smart. I think that naysaying and bozosity, as I call it, is like the flu. And how do you fight the flu? You get a shot. You get a little bit of flu in advance. So when your body encounters big flu, you've already built up resistance. I'm going to give you some shots of bozosity. So when you encounter bozosity in your careers, you'll remember that day at Brand Minds 2019 where you got the shot. And you will not let it affect you. I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, said this in 1943. 5 computers. I have 5 Macintoshes in my house. I have all the computers he anticipated in the world in my house today. This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Western Union, internal memo, 1876. In 1876, Western Union wrote off telephony. Oops. Maybe the strategic direction in 1876 was, let's teach Americans the Morse code. How hard could that be? We'll teach Americans the Morse code, we can put a telegraph in every house. And as Americans get more mobile on their horse-drawn carts, we'll string long bales of copper wire behind those carts, and that'll be our mobile solution. There's no reason why anyone would want a computer in their home. Ken Olsen, founder of DEC. He was a fantastic entrepreneur, fantastic innovator. But he was so successful with mini computers, he could not embrace personal computers. If you had a very successful ice factory, would you start telling people to use a refrigerator? Probably not. And this is an excellent case of dangerous bozosity, because Ken Olsen would be a very logical person to advise Apple, right? Can you imagine? You're Steve and Woz, 2 guys in a garage in Cupertino, and people are telling you, Boys, you need some adult supervision. You need someone who's been there and done that. Someone who's built the hardware company. Someone like Ken Olsen built DEC. So by chance, you finally get to Ken Olsen and you tell Mr. Olsen, we have a different vision of computing. Computers should be small and cheap and easy to use, Mr. Olsen. So small, so cheap, so easy to use, Mr. Olsen. You're gonna have a computer in your house, Mr. Olsen. And Mr. Olsen says, son, there is no reason why anyone would want a computer in their home. If they want to balance their checkbook, they will get back in their carts, go to their office, and use a DEC mini computer running Quicken. What's the problem? So before you ruin your life, learn COBOL and come work for DEC. And there would be no Apple. This is the height of dangerous bozosity. Don't let the bozos grind you down. I wish I could tell you, when people tell you you'll fail, it means you'll succeed. It's not that easy. But if people tell you you'll fail, and you believe them and listen and never try, you will never know. And that's the worst outcome of all. Number six is if you want to be an innovator, you need to be able to change your mind. Many people believe that changing your mind is a sign of weakness and stupidity. I think it's a sign of strength and intelligence. Our innovative approach using Web 2.0 based standards lets developers create amazing new applications while keeping the iPhone secure and reliable. Steve said this at the announcement of the iPhone, June 11, 2007. Let me translate what he's saying. He's saying the iPhone is a closed system. You cannot write apps for the iPhone. All you can do to add functionality to the iPhone is a Safari plugin, i.e. Web 2.0 based standards. A year goes by. Apple executives to showcase Mac OS X Leopard and OS X iPhone development platforms at WWDC 2008 keynote. A year later, Apple is announcing tools to write native apps. This is a 180-degree reversal. Many companies would not have done this because they would think it would make them look stupid, look weak, make them look like they don't know what they're doing. But I'm telling you, something like this 180-degree reversal is a sign of strength and intelligence. Don't be afraid of changing your mind. Number seven is my recommendation for branding, for product development, for marketing. This is it. If you just understand this line, I think you understand all of marketing and all of branding and all of product development. It is not something to do with drugs and politics. It is positioning. This is a 2x2 matrix. If any of you have ever worked with McKinsey, you know that it costs $2 million to find out you should be in the upper right-hand corner. I'm telling you that right now for free. So, let's go through every corner. In the bottom right corner, you have something that is valuable, but it is not unique. This is the Dell corner. In the Dell corner, you slap the same Windows operating system on the same hardware. You make billions of dollars there, but it's always about price because you're not differentiated. You can succeed there, but it's always about price. In the upper left-hand corner, that's a corner where you own a market that doesn't exist. Only you have done this, but it is of no value. In that corner, you are just plain stupid. In the bottom left corner, where you have done something that's not valuable, and lots of other companies have done the same stupid thing. Basically, you're stupid and it's crowded. That's the worst corner of all. I like to use the example from America.com phenomenon of Pets.com, right? So 15 years or so ago, Pets.com. The proposition for Pets.com is we will disintermediate the retail pet food distribution system. No more retailer. We're going to wipe out the retailer, and therefore we can discount pet food 20%. That was the proposition. The problem with that proposition is you can take away the retailer, but then that cow in the can is still in the factory. You need to get the dead cow in the can to the dog. The only way to do that is therefore shipping. And if there's shipping, there's handling. So now you discounted it at the top of the invoice. You had to add back shipping and handling at the bottom of the invoice. And then somebody had to be at home when UPS tried to drop off the dead cow in the can. So it was just as expensive and more inconvenient. It was of no value. Now, why was Pets.com so crowded? It's because of this pitch. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs in this audience, I want you to promise to never, ever use a pitch like this. This is the equivalent of the Bob Cialdini example of, will you call if you're going to cancel? Okay? I'm asking you, will you please never do what I'm about to do? This is how it goes. Actually, there's no HIPAA in Romania, so I can tell you about my health problems. So I have something called Meniere's disease. Meniere's disease has 3 symptoms. Hearing loss, so I can barely hear in this ear. So if you come up to me after this and you start talking in this ear and I don't do anything or acknowledge you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. I cannot hear you, okay? I also have tinnitus in this ear, which is a ringing. It's going 24/7. And sometimes I get attacked with some vertigo. That's the symptoms of Meniere's. So there are many theories about what causes Meniere's. Too much salt, too much alcohol, and too much stress. I basically just described my life for you. I have a different theory. I don't think it's the salt or the stress. I don't think it's the caffeine. I don't think it's anything like that. What causes my Meniere's is that when I was a venture capitalist, I had to listen to thousands of stupid pitches. And those pitches made me go deaf. There's a constant ringing in my ear. And now I get dizzy every once in a while. So before Meniere's becomes an absolute epidemic, I want to give you this pitch so you never use it, okay? This is the Pets.com pitch. There are 300 million Americans. 1 in 4 owns a dog. 75 million own dogs in America. Each dog eats 2 cans of dog food per day. Total addressable market of 2 times. $75 million. That's 150 million cans of dog food per day. And dogs eat every day. This is not a B2B business where you take the weekends off. This is B2C, or more accurately, B2D. 150 million cans of dog food per day, total addressable market. With my rock star co-founders, how hard could it be to get a mere 1% of that? That is 1.5 million cans of dog food per day, conservatively speaking, times 365. We're talking 5, 6, 700 million cans of dog food per year, conservatively speaking. So that's why Silicon Valley funded Pets.com, MyPets.com, ePets.com, DiscountPets.com, LastMinutePets.com. There are 10 ways to buy dead cows in cans because of that pitch. That's the worst corner to be in. The corner you want to be in is this upper right-hand corner. I think iPod is an excellent example of that, because when iPod first came out, it was truly unique and valuable, because iPod had an interface that a mere mortal could operate. Okay, right there you wipe out all the Walkmans and all the MP3 players. A mere mortal could operate it. And then Apple had relationships with the 6 biggest music publishers. And so you could buy music for 99 cents. So this device had a usable human interface with great selection that you could legally buy songs for 99 cents. It was high and to the right. And so this to me is the secret to branding and product development and marketing and everything. It's the key to dating. It's the key to a happy marriage. Husbands, you need to be unique and valuable. Okay? Wrap your mind around that. If you make a product that is unique and valuable, that's where meaning is made. That's where margin is made. That's where history is made. You want a unique and valuable product. The upper right-hand corner. Number 8. Number 8 is something I stole from Chairman Mao, although I failed to see how we ever implemented it. It is to let 100 flowers blossom. And by this I mean, as an innovator, you take your best shot at positioning and branding and marketing and all that, and then you ship. And OMG, guess what happens? You ship, and you may encounter a situation where people who you never considered your customer start buying your product. And they may even buy it in large quantities. So, point of information, if this ever happens to you, you're working for a company, you think you know exactly who should use the product, you ship it, and completely different people use the product, you know what you do? You declare victory. That's what you do. And you take the money. Always take the money. So let me give you a good example of this. In the mid-'80s at Apple, we thought the Macintosh would be for spreadsheet, database, and word processing. Guess what? We were 0 for 3 there. Big companies did not use Macintosh for any of those functions. But there was a little flower called Aldous PageMaker. And there was another little flower called Adobe PostScript. And PostScript and PageMaker created a field of flowers called desktop publishing. And desktop publishing saved Apple. Because when everyone was rejecting Macintosh for spreadsheet, database, and word processing, people were loving Macintosh for desktop publishing. I think that desktop publishing was a gift from God to Apple Computer. I believe in God, and one of the reasons why I believe in God is there is no other explanation for Apple's continued survival than the existence of God. So, my recommendation is you take your best shot, you ship, and then if you think you have a computer for spreadsheet, database, and word processing, but come to find out it's desktop publishing that's blooming, hallelujah. We created that computer for desktop publishing. Hallelujah. You know, if you're in biotech and you're working on something for heart disease, and come to find out it helps with men's erection problems, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Declare victory. That little purple pill, man. Take the money. Take the money. Let 100 flowers blossom. Number 9. Number 9. Black Panthers, political activists in America used to say, burn, baby, burn. You know what? In revolutionaries of business, of innovation, they churn, baby, churn. This is the hardest lesson for me to learn. Because we thought that innovation was an event. January 24th, 1984, ship Macintosh, that's it. The biggest problem will be how can we make it fast enough? It took 30-something years to get to the point of iMac Pro. Took much longer than any of us anticipated. So the lesson here is that you have to go from version 1 to 1.1 to 1.2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. It could take you 10 versions. It could take you 20 years. Churn, baby, churn. Innovation is a process. It is not an event. And number 10. Number 10 is that if you want to be an innovator, you're going to have to learn how to pitch. You're going to pitch for capital, pitch for permission, pitch for sales, pitch to recruit, pitch for partnerships. If your lips are moving, you are going to be pitching. So I'm going to give you my tips for pitching. Number 1 is customize your intro. When you meet with people, every time you meet with people, God's gift to pitching is LinkedIn. OMG. From LinkedIn, you can find out what school they went to, what their interests are, where they worked, who you know in common. You're looking for some kind of bond, some kind of way to break the ice, something to say, oh, you worked at Apple too. Oh, you went to USC too. Were you on the crew team or did you just get in that way? Find something in common. Customize your intro. Another very good way to customize your intro besides LinkedIn is to use pictures. And I'll show you some examples of that. This is a picture of an LG washer and dryer. So I was in Brazil speaking to the South American management of LG. But I was already in Brazil when I put two and two together, and I figured out, you know, guy, you're talking to LG and you use LG. So what you should do is open up your speech showing your LG washer and dryer. But I was already in Brazil. So I have 4 children. They are currently 25, 23, 17, and 13. So at the time, I sent a message to my 2 older boys, 25 and 23, and I said basically, just kind of pause Call of Duty that I bought you on the Xbox that I bought you. Take the iPhones that I bought you, in the house that I bought you, go downstairs and take a picture of the washer and dryer that I bought you. I'm about to make a speech. I need it in an hour. How many of you have teenage boys in this audience? So you know what happened. Nothing. Right. So, before I click the next time, older boy's name is Nick, younger boy's name is Noah. Nick and Noah. I sent a text message to Nick saying, Nick, have you gotten my text messages? Nick says, oh, Noah said he got the text messages too, and since you're talking to LG, can you get us some free TVs? Welcome to my life. Noah, God bless him, he did send those pictures right away. I have 4 children, and I promise you that Noah is getting more than 25% of my estate. More examples of using pictures. A few years ago, I spoke in Moscow, and I opened up with this picture. This is a picture of me in Red Square. And I said, wow, you Russians, I had no idea. You have big balls in Russia. And this is before they picked our president. This is a picture of me in the Grand Bazaar of Istanbul, which is one of the coolest cities around. The guy behind me is the shopkeeper. I was speaking to a tech conference in Istanbul, and I opened up with this picture. When you open up in Turkey wearing a fez in the Grand Bazaar, you establish a rapport with the audience. There's no way I could look everybody up in LinkedIn in that kind of audience, but to show myself wearing a fez. And this guy behind me, that's the shopkeeper. You see how happy he is? You know what he's thinking? He's thinking, this dumb-ass American is going to buy this fez? This stinking fez has been in my family's shop for 3 generations. I finally found someone stupid enough to buy this fez. God bless America. Yeah. So, LinkedIn or pictures. Second thing, the Guy Kawasaki rule of presentations, 10, 20, 30, okay? 10 slides, 10 slides. 10 slides is the optimal number of slides in a presentation. You'll be lucky to get 10 points across. Now, you are not a stupid audience. You're sitting there, you're thinking, typical American. He's telling us to use 10 slides. He's on number 45 right now, right? That's what you're thinking, right? I know that's what you're thinking. Let me explain. You are not me. 10 slides. You may have a 1-hour meeting. You may have a 1-hour meeting, but you need to be able to give those 10 slides in 20 minutes. In the real world, people are late, meetings start late, people leave early, and there's also another factor which is, to my utter dismay, to this day, roughly 80% of the world uses Windows laptops. And I know when somebody shows up to give a pitch with a Windows laptop, I need to give them 40 minutes to make it work with the projector. The third part of this rule is that the smallest font you should ever use is roughly 30 points. 30 points, not 8, 10, or 12. There should be no complete sentences in your pitch. A good rule of thumb is figure out who the oldest person is in your audience, divide his or her age by 2. 60-year-old VC or manager, 30 points. 50-year-old, 25 points. God help you, someday you may be pitching to a 16-year-old venture capitalist, 8 point that day, okay? But until that day, 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30 points. You know Steve Jobs' slides? 190 points. 190 points. Generally speaking, the bigger the font, the better the speaker. 190 points. And one more power tip for you. I want you to go and you can use Canva to this, because Canva, you can now make 16:9 presentations and save and export to the native PowerPoint format, okay? It's a new feature. But regardless of what you use, I want you to make your backgrounds black. And the reason why you make your background black, and you can see it in action here, is that when your backgrounds are black, people cannot see where your slide ends and the rest of the image begins, because everything is black. Have you ever gone to a movie and seen black text on a white background at the end of the movie for the credits? If you have a black background, it says you are a presentation ninja master. You know how to create a master page and find that dark background and then this big, thick, white, sans serif, highly legible font. I'm telling you, black is the new black. So just to prove my point, black background, white background. You tell me which one is more credible. Which one shows greater gravitas? White background or black background? Make your backgrounds black. If you make your backgrounds black, use a 30-point font, use only 10 slides, and you can do it in 20 minutes, you will be better than 95% of the people in the world in pitching. I promise you that. Okay? 10, 20, 30, black. That's the key. That's the key. I still have 5 minutes and 24 seconds. I can tell you one more story. So, unlike Bob, I'm going to finish on time. I have greater respect for the audience. So one day, I meet with this entrepreneur. This entrepreneur was a black entrepreneur from Georgia. And it's about 11 in the morning. And he says, Guy, I pitched my company once today. I have a 3-hour break, and then I pitch it again. I have some time. Do you have any tips for me on how I can make my pitch better? And I say to him, is your background black? And he says to me, I told you I'm from Georgia, I'm from a multicultural family. No, I can see you're a black man. Is your PowerPoint background black? Black is the new black. The last slide I have for you. This is something that every innovator, every revolutionary, every entrepreneur, you all have to appreciate. You know, the skeptics in the world, the naysayers, the bozos, they always have the opposite attitude. Their attitude is, well, if I can see it, if you show it to me, I will believe it. That's not how innovation works. The way innovation works is you have to believe it and then you will see it. It was my job as a software evangelist to make software companies believe in Macintosh before it was real. When I evangelized Macintosh, you had to buy a $10,000 Lisa to write the program. There was very little documentation. There was zero install base to sell it to. But if developers believed in Macintosh and wrote apps, killer apps like PageMaker, if they believed, then there would be software. And if there's software, then Macintosh would exist. So the way it worked is we had to get people to believe in Macintosh, to see it. If it worked the other way, we had to show them a Macintosh and then they would believe it. We would have never succeeded. And my lesson to you, my final thought for you is if you want to succeed as a revolutionary, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, you have to wrap your mind around this. That in order to succeed, the first step, not the second step, the first step is you need to believe and make other people believe. Evangelism comes from Greek words meaning bringing the good news. I was an evangelist for Macintosh. I believe Macintosh was good news. It made people more creative and productive. The difference between an evangelist and a salesperson is the evangelist has the other person's best interests at heart. When I told people to use a Macintosh, it was because I thought it would make them more creative and productive. Don't get me wrong, it was also good for me. But I had the other person's self-interest at heart. When I tell you today to use Canva to build all your graphics, it is because I believe you will create great graphics that will make you a better communicator. As Bob would say, these are the things you are missing by not using Canva now. So remember, evangelism, bringing the good news. You need to make people believe before you can see the innovation come true. And that is the art of innovation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.